Hey Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here and welcome to Let's Play Civ 6, Gathering Storm with the New Frontier Pass. I think things are progressing very nicely in this game. It's not the fastest win I've ever had, but we're making really good progress. Once we grab conservation, we'll be pumping out tourism, and we've also got a ton of archaeologists on the way. Diplomatically, we're doing very well as well. We have a big war going on with Simon Bolivar. We managed to drag quite a few people into that war. And I would actually like to pull even more people into the war, but it looks like Nubia won't join. Neither will Ethiopia, which is a bit unfortunate. Hopefully I'll be able to get them to join the war later. Settled the city of Quila, and I placed down a harbour and theatre square here. I do plan to make another theatre square triangle with Mabumbi. Let's go through and make sure we get friendships with everyone here. I like to do all of my diplomatic stuff all on the same turn so that I just have to think about one turn where I refresh them all. Economic alliance with Menelik. He doesn't have any spare luxuries that I want to buy, but I could sell him turtles that he might accept, and we'll get 21 gold per turn for this trade deal. Same deal with the Ottomans. We'll go for another cultural alliance with open borders and Wales. I know open borders is part of the alliance, but you tend to get better deals if you add in the open borders. I'll do a military alliance with Spain, and I'll even sell him a little bit of ivory too. Tech-wise, I think it's a good idea to start heading towards industrialization. But this game we would like to pick up the Eiffel Tower if at all possible. We also want to pick up electricity for seaports, radio for broadcast centers, flight for extra tourism from improvements, and computers for the 25% tourism boost across your empire. So I'm definitely focused up here in the top half of the tech tree. Let's grab industrialization first. Also picked up Horatio Nelson, who can instantaneously build a lighthouse and shipyard in a city with a harbour. So I'm going to harvest this out and try to get it real quick. Final great work sculpture from Michelangelo has been placed into Kinshasa, giving me a huge amount of food and production and gold. I have an apostle here promoted with the 100 gold if you convert a city to your religion for the first time. I've got to use him to pump out some extra gold from these newly settled cities. I took a shot at building the Colossus and we managed to pull it off. It's not the most amazing wonder in the game, but an extra trade route is pretty nice. Plus I will pick up a little bit of tourism from it. If I go to the tourism map mode, it's giving me 5 tourism per turn, which is about on par with getting a couple of great works of writing. So not a terrible investment by any stretch of the imagination. Have enough gold to actually purchase my archaeologist in Mpinda, which basically saves me 17 turns in here. At 17 turns, I could go towards something else like an entertainment complex or a commercial hub. I do feel like we're getting to the part of the game where commercial hubs are going to be super important for great merchant generation, so I'm going to start working on those. Some of the late game great merchants gives you a ton of tourism, so I definitely want to pick those up. Retake suzerainty of Babylon, and I'd also like to retake suzerainty of Nazca if I could. Vilnius is another city-state that I want to make friends with, but I'll only bring them up to 3 for now. They give me a theatre square adjacency for my highest active level alliance. That'll be super useful in the late game, but right now it's not a huge benefit. Most of my theatre squares actually have really low adjacency. That's because I haven't actually prioritized building my entertainment complexes. Once I do build my entertainment complexes, they'll be super high adjacency, so that'll be much more useful later on. This is arguably one of the most important civics you can pick up in a tourism game, because it gives you access to the naturalist as well as the ability to plant forests. Planting forests is going to be a pretty big deal, especially over here, for example, in Quila, where I have a really nice national park already lined up. Let's buy both of those tiles and purchase ourselves a naturalist in here. That'll give us a really nice tourism output from this city. The other great thing about conservation is that it gives you tourism from all of your wall buildings. So now each of my cities is cranking out a ton of tourism, and I'm up to 138 per turn. And usually about 100 tourism is when I decide to start trading internationally to maximize my tourism gains. You get a tourism boost for having an active trade route with another civilization. You can see here with Suleiman, I have plus 25% tourism against Suleiman for having an active trade route. And since you can apply that bonus to every single civilization individually, I find international trade routes are really important to organize in this stage of the game. Previously, I was using the majority of my trade routes for internal trade, but now that's going to be looking to expand outwards. Since we finished conservation, our next beeline is going to be urbanization for the military research card, and then finally for mass media to pick up the Cristo Redentor. Cristo Redentor is really nice if you want to go for seaside resorts because it doubles the tourism output from your seaside resorts. The really fantastic thing that I love about national parks is they give you a ton of era score every time you build them. I think the first one you get +4, and then every one after that you get +2 or +3. Purchase our third archaeology in a Banza and Bata, and I'll use this one to try to pick up extra relics or artifacts from other people's territory. Cool little trick that not a lot of people know, you can actually plant woods inside of your national parks to get a little bit more appeal inside them. Simon Bolivar's culture per turn has fallen significantly, so I decided to make peace with him. I'm going to target my aggression towards Gorgo instead. I'll be trying to get Spain to go to war with her alongside Simon Bolivar. Let's pop Horatio Nelson into Quila. Currently it's producing 9 production per turn. I slap him in and the city jumps up to 12 production per turn. Now 13 after refreshing it again, which is a really respectable production number for a freshly settled city, especially one where most of its working tiles are actually dedicated to a national park. I settled another city down in Abanza and Pango. That's mostly because I'm kind of hoping to turn this into a pair of national parks. I'll pop one national park on this 4-tile diamond and then another national park on this 4-tile diamond, so there'll probably be a little bit of investment in this city, mostly in the form of tile purchasing and naturalists to let me fill this out properly. Let's grab some more artifacts. This one will be a I think I'll take a Gorgo artifact actually. Starting to fill up my museums now, and the yields you can start to pull on these things are amazing, especially if you've got Babylon in the game for the extra science. I do really want to keep on an eye on great scientists, however, and in fact we're getting close to where Mary Leakey would appear, and I never actually built any campuses this game, so I'm gonna have to make that a priority immediately in the hopes of making up for that mistake. Another national park. Well, we get 3 error score for each national park, which would make it really easy to get, you know, normal ages and golden ages and stuff. This might be the greatest barbarian conversion I've ever done. Getting 2 free field cannons is insane. And I'm gonna get 2 free musketmen, albeit quite weak, but I've pretty much just doubled the size of my army here by using a single apostle on some barbarians. Let's grab another naturalist down here in Mbanzim Pangu, and I think I could even get another, national park up here to the north, although I might want those dies for myself because I don't actually have them. I've got my very first archaeological museum filled out here, which has given me a ton of food production and gold, but I'd like to organize these great works by era, and it looks like we've got 2 Renaissance in here and 1 industrial, so this industrial will want to get flicked over to an industrial compatible museum. If I had one more Renaissance era item from another civ, like for example this earring from Menelik, I can definitely theme this museum once I fill this out, because you're actually not allowed to move artifacts until you fill the whole museum. Yeah, we're definitely into the atomic era great scientists, so I need to start pumping hard for great scientists, because I really need to get Mary Leakey. Let's pop those earrings into Mpinda, although I would like this extra food production and gold and stuff inside my capital, so I'm going to shift all of these over right here, and when you theme them, it actually doubles the bonuses, which is amazing. I'd like to start building up a classical era collection over here, and I have one from Nazca and one from Aminator. Can I find another classical era artifact? Nope, not in my collection just yet. Mpinda, on the other hand, I think is being set up for an industrial era theme. Another national park for me. And we just hit an important breakpoint. We're making 200 tourism per turn. I'll try to keep you guys updated whenever we hit a particular breakpoint, but we have 17 out of 180 visiting tourists, which means we're making really good progress. We've managed to keep the culture per turn of other civs pretty suppressed, and we're making tourism really fast. We picked up industrialization. We will want to do a little bit of factory and coal power plant stuff just so we can power some of our late game buildings. I think our priority is, man, it really feels like it should be flight, shouldn't it? Either flight or radio. But I think now is the time to maybe head for steel to pick up the Eiffel Tower. That's going to be super important for me, because with the Eiffel Tower, I'll be able to actually make some amazing seaside resorts and national parks. Got a very first campus with +3 era score. We're still in the atomic rate people era, but the Ottomans are making 100 great scientist points per turn. What the hell are the Ottomans doing to make so many great scientist points? Beautiful. We are up to 3 themed archaeological museums, churning out an insane amount of food production, gold, science, culture, and tourism. The sheer amount of yields you get from archaeological museums as the Congo is insane, and that's why I love playing the Congo. Well, bam, we have military research, which gives us +2 science from our Renaissance campus walls. We will, of course, be plugging in military research. I have inspiration plugged in just to shave a little bit of time off of acquiring Mary Leakey. I don't have a whole lot of ways to get grain scientist points, and they're the most valuable thing available to me in this game right now. I guess you could technically say colonial taxes might be more valuable because the extra gold would be used to purchase her. So that's actually a very convincing argument that I just made with myself. Thank you, me. Well played. Each of these campus research grants costs me 200 production to run, and you get 15% of the production input into them as great people points, which means if I divide 200 by 0.15, I end up with 30. That's how many great people points I'll get in 8 turns. If you divide 30 by 8, I'm getting roughly 3.75 great scientist points per turn from running this project, which, when you take into account the fact that I have a campus library and university, each of them giving me +1 great person points, running this campus research grants in this particular city roughly doubles my great person point output. In my newer settled cities like Mabumbi, I'm going for art museums because they take a little bit less investment, and by this stage of the game I have some artists saved up. Namely, I have El Greco, who's been sitting in Mbanza Nasundi, and I'll teleport him over to Mabumbi. Very unfortunate that this coal appeared here, because I did plan to put a commercial hub in this city. I think that just means I'll have to work on my entertainment complex a little bit sooner than I would like, but I actually don't want to buy these tiles or chop this tile, or rather crush this tile, so I'll grab myself a builder in here to chop that, and then I'll be able to place my entertainment complex. Oof, we got a really bad Haboob dust storm in Katango. I'm going to have to do a lot of repairs in here, namely on the theatre square. Modern era has been reached and we are in a golden age. Everyone else is in a normal or dark age in the case of Greece. I don't know if Hic sunt Dracones is super important to me right now. To me, it really feels like it's between reform the coinage to make my international trade routes super powerful, or heartbeat of steam so that I can pick up the Eiffel Tower and Cristo Redentor much easier. That 10% production boost towards industrial era and later wonders seems like it's super valuable, but the amount of gold that you get from reform the coinage is insane. I think I'll go for Heartbeat of Steam, but it really could be either of these options. Adoration of the Magi has been created in this city, and now something you're going to want to learn to do with your great artists is not actually to spend all of their charges in a single city, because once you place a artwork from an artist into a city, you can't actually move it for 10 turns. So this is important because if you look at these 2 sculptures by David, if I put those into Mabumbi, for example, you'll notice the first one gives me 3 culture and 2 tourism, but the second one, because it is the same type of art, or maybe it's from the same artist, it actually doesn't give you as much value. So I will get more value from this sculpture if I take it out of this city and put it into my capital, because that's not true of any great works put into the capital. They're always counted as if they're, maximum output. That's why it's very, very important to kind of carefully plan and micromanage how you place great works from your artist. So for example, in Kinshasa over here, I've actually not been getting a huge amount of value from these later 2. This first one is giving me 3 culture and 2 tourism. This one's only giving me 1 and 1, and this one's only giving me 1 and 1. If I wanted to get maximum value from these, I would take Judith slaying Hoffness, put that into my capital, and then put Pieta down here in place of that one, and this actually nets me more total culture and tourism than the previous configuration. There's a lot of like small little micromanaging stuff that you can do in the great work screen that not a lot of people are super aware of, so hopefully me talking about it lets you sort of get a better handle on how to manage this. If you're wondering how I get such a good mix of great works of artifacts to actually fill my archaeological museums, it's very simple. I kind of just blindly pick. I just randomly pick, and somehow, through the grace of God or whatever, I end up with a whole bunch of artifacts that are capable of being themed. I almost always end up with like maybe 1/3 to like half of my museums not being able to be themed, but at least half of my museums can be themed usually, which I think is a pretty good result. Put 8 votes for myself for the diplomatic victory. I don't know if I'll get this, but it would be nice to have a backup victory if culture doesn't work out for me. We're also voting up the World's Fair, which is based on generating great people points. And I'm trying to get people to trade with me. And I think in terms of resources, the AI usually votes down the most plentiful thing that it doesn't have, which in this case is wine. So a safe ban vote will almost certainly be wine in this game. If I just throw, a little bit of Diplo favor here, I'll get the win outcome that I want. Looks like I was correct. The chosen luxury of wine no longer gives luxuries. Trade policy for Movember has passed, and diplomatic victory card for me has passed, and World's Fair has passed. So potentially a lot of diplomatic victory points have just kind of come into the game for me. I'm at 11 out of 20. If I were to win this aid request, I would be up to 13. And if I got the World's Fair, I'd be up to 14. And actually, the Statue of Liberty hasn't been built this game, which gives 4 diplomatic victory points. So if I were to build that, I would be incredibly close to a diplomatic victory win. And you know what? That sounds like a great meme. So I'm going to go ahead and try to build a Statue of Liberty. Mass media has been researched, so we have access to Broadway, which is one of the least important culture wonders, in my opinion, even though it gives you a massive amount of culture. It's more important if you're trying to defend against a culture victory. So if there's like a competitive culture victory going on, whoever gets this has an edge, but I'm not really concerned about picking it up myself. I'm far more concerned with getting the Cristo Redentor because that doubles your tourism from seaside resorts. Cristo Redentor will only take 23 turns to build in my capital, so I'm going to go ahead and go for that. It will mean I get less great scientist points because I won't be working those in here, but I do have Maban Zambata working on it and Mbuila right now. So I'm feeling relatively secure that I have a good chance of getting Mary Leakey this game. With mass media, I think it's time to move on towards capitalism to pick up shopping malls. That +4 tourism per city means in conjunction with Renaissance walls, I'll be getting a total of 10 tourism per city just as a baseline. I'll also plug in skyscrapers for that 15% production towards wonders. Place the Assunta by Titian into Kongo. Then I'll place the Assumption of the Virgin from El Greco in there. Once we have those two in there, we'll have an almost themed museum. And I'll just need to find maybe this Michelangelo great work, pop it in there, and then we've got a themed art museum. Now I just need to place the El Greco great work in here, and instantly I have a themed Kongo. Man, sometimes I say, like, what was that sentence? What the hell did I just say? That doesn't even sound like it's real words. Why, yes, buddies, I'm Potato McWhiskey, and today I'm going to be showing you how to theme your religious artworks using El Greco inside your Kongo art museum. Tier 3 government today is going to be democracy, but I'll explain why once we pick it up, but we're working towards suffrage now. Ooh, Gran Colombia is actually going for the Ruhr Valley, and they're not that far along. If I were to purchase my coal power plant inside the city of Kinshasa, the city might have enough production to actually compete for the Ruhr Valley, considering it's only a 24-turn build. I wouldn't get much benefit out of the mining part, but a 20% production boost is a 20% production boost. For 25 turns of work, that's not bad at all. Oh, this is amazing. I'm going to capture so many barbarians with this. I mean, not that they're amazingly useful, but free barbarians, thanks. I already got 2 classical artifacts in Mabuji Mai from 2 different civilizations, Nazca and Amanator. I think I can pop over this mosaic and theme this museum as well. So now I have 4 out of 5 themed museums. 6 if you include the art museum. I do have a couple of archaeological museums that haven't actually finished their archaeologists yet though. It's around that time again to renew all my friendships and alliances. Upon review, Gorgo and Simon Bolivar are still a little bit scary. We also just hit the tourism threshold of 300 tourism per turn, which is a really, really nice amount of tourism to have at this stage of the game. We're at 44 out of 195 tourists, so we're making amazing progress. And I think I'm just going to go through the motions of really quickly re-upping all of my alliances with my sort of neighbors to prevent any threats from being able to be brought to bear against me. My alliances are actually level 2 and slowly working their way up to level 3. It'll take a bit of time for us to reach that point, but it's coming along nicely, especially since the level 2 ability allows your districts to grant an additional great person point if you have a trade route from that city to your ally. So I'll want to make use of this cultural alliance if I can once I'm trading with everyone else. Steel is unlocked, giving us access to the Eiffel Tower, which is going to give us an insane amount of appeal across our empire. The downside is, of course, that we can no longer build any of the wall improvements, so we won't get any more. I won't get any more tourism from walls, but we get to keep the old ones. With steel, our next direction, I feel, is pretty clear. The only thing that really matters to us on this tech tree is biospheres, which I'm pretty sure is a little bit broken at the moment and doesn't actually function as intended. and computers for the 25% tourism across our empire. So since tourism is on the top half of the tech tree, and pretty much all of the other techs that we want in this game lead to it, for example, we would like scientific theory for better plantations, we want steam power so that we can get extra movement on our embarked units because it's a water map, we would like flight because that allows us to turn tourism from improvements into, or culture from improvements into tourism. We also want radio because that gives us our tier 3 culture building. We want electricity because this is a water map, we have a ton of seaports, and we would also like computers because this gives us flood barriers. So all of these decisions, I feel like once you reach this stage of the game in a culture game, it's really obvious to just click on computers and forget any other tech exists, unless you very specifically need like a unit to defend yourself. Oh, this is going to be the most amazing barbarian steal of my life. I get a free battleship, clear a barb camp, and a spearman. That's insane. I gotta really respect how good religious units can be on these naval maps. Taking a look at the progress that Grand Columbia has made on the Ruhr Valley, it looks like it's really far along. And when you compare it to my Ruhr Valley, it's nowhere near complete. So unfortunately, I think I am going to have to cancel this Ruhr Valley and go for something else in here. I'm okay with this though, because I do still really need the Eiffel Tower. And hopefully when the Ruhr Valley gets cancelled in a few turns, all that production will shift into the Eiffel. Awesome. The aid request was mine, and I managed to get the 2 diplomatic victory points and the 100 diplomatic favour. That leaves us in a very interesting position because diplomatically I am 13 out of 20 points. I'm in the middle of building the Statue of Liberty, which would bring me up to 17 out of 20 points. And I'm also on the way to a culture victory with 54 out of 203 tourists. So I think this game is kind of shaking up to be a very interesting game. I'm going to call it for this episode, however. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.